for all the praise that is heaped on Doom for being the first FPS game, or for being the first action shooter, or for defining a genre, it's easy to forget that at the time of its release, it already was a derivative of id Software's previous title, Wolfenstein 3D. Indeed, as much as people will point at many of the games of that era and claim they are all just Doom but you play as a wizard or Doom but you kill aliens, Doom is basically just Wolfenstein 3D but with demons instead of Nazis. And so, today's mod, BJ Blazkowicz, the protagonist of Wolfenstein 3D, is perhaps even more of a full circle moment for SRB2 than those that had Doomguy or Doomslayer. But unfortunately the mod is hampered by the lack of one key addition that would make it far more interesting. Let's dive in. BJ is of a small subgenre of SRB2 modded characters, consisting of the likes of Duke Nukem and Samus, in that they are characters built to be played primarily in first person, and to focus more on combat, usually of the manually aimed ranged variety, over interesting ways to traverse levels. BJ is perhaps the most vanilla version of this concept, being that he has, outside of almost every character's innate ability to jump, one passive and two active abilities that are in any way related to movement, with one being used to make yourself slower to better deal with first-person platforming. BJ can destroy breakable floors just by stepping on them, a necessity due to his inability to crouch or roll, and spikes and walls can be destroyed using your knife. Actually, saying spikes is perhaps a little misleading, as while you can destroy them, you will destroy one spike each time, which makes any situation where you need to break through multiple time-consuming to say the least. Finally, as Rem has recognised that first-person platforming would be horrendous as a character with such limited tools to position themselves in midair or correct a mistake, pressing spin will turn off auto-run, so that any delicate platforming sections become significantly more bearable. And that's it. Beyond his quirk of phasing through obstacles he's hit by instead of jumping back, which does make more hazardous platforming far more bearable, BJ has no more traversal abilities, which is fine enough, as he is hardly the most acrobatic character in his original series of games, and he's generally still capable of making his way through the main level path with only minor difficulty, but it's very clear that all focus has been put on the second part of his moveset, the guns. Yes, BJ has access to 3 of his main guns, as well as a knife, from Wolfenstein 3D. You start each level with a knife, a pistol and a dozen bullets, and by exploring the levels you can locate both the machine gun and chain gun. Alternatively, and this is perhaps one of the few times I've seen this occur, collecting certain numbers of Chaos Emeralds will allow you to begin levels with these guns already in hand and with extra ammo. Every emerald increases starting ammo by 6, 3 unlocks the machine gun for immediate use, and 7 gives you the chain gun at the start of every level. While I can only say how good of an idea this is, I always play in record attack, so I effectively always play with 0 emeralds. I like how this gives benefits to collecting Chaos Emeralds before you collect all 7, and I wish more mods had a more progressive power-up system like this. Ammo is collected from defeated enemies, 4 bullets per drop, and guns replace a small number of monitors, whilst most of the rest become medkits, as Blazkowicz has a health system unaffected by rings, with this being the only way to regain health. Unfortunately, there's a problem that makes it mostly pointless to collect these extra firearms, which is mostly down to how SRB2 is made, but is not helped by the inaction of the mod to remedy it. Both the machine gun and chain gun are effectively just upgrades to the starting pistol, firing more bullets more quickly, but this is pointless in a game where almost all enemies have 1 HP, and all enemies that have more have invulnerability between hits. Indeed, it could be argued that these collectible weapons are actually worse than the starting pistol, as they burn through more ammo for exactly no extra reward. You're unlikely to run out, as again, every enemy takes 1 shot to kill and drops 4 bullets, but as the only metric to determine a gun's efficiency, it's pretty ridiculous. What makes this worse is that I've only just recently played Metroid Vanguard, and while I'm not saying that BJ needs to play like some intergalactic bounty hunter, this mod could do with copying how it handles enemy health. Just increase it! Remove invincibility frames in the process, and these extra weapons might now actually have a purpose. As it is, collecting weapons is effectively pointless, but this one change could make it far more rewarding and fix the one problem the mod has. BJ completely overhauls the UI for the game, replacing default SRB2 Sonic-inspired one for one practically ripped straight from Wolfenstein 3D. Objectively speaking, their UI is clunky, massive, and generally pretty ugly, but I'm framing this as a good thing for the mod more because of how well it works here, more so than whether it looked good in the first place. This works better than expected, as while it removes your ability to see your rings in time, you don't need to see them in the first place. This is because REM has seemingly overhauled rankings, with points being given based on the percentage of enemies killed in the level, secrets found, and treasure located. This actually makes BJ incredibly good at one thing in particular, collecting boss score emblems in Record Attack, as just defeating the boss gives you a guaranteed 11,000 points. But outside of UI, the sprites are pretty good. I'm fairly certain they're ripped straight from Wolfenstein 3D, which makes sense, but they look clean. I also like the little BJ head changing expression the more damage you take, or changing when you find an invincibility monitor. The graphical changes definitely change how the game feels, and especially in places like Castle Eggman, you can almost forget you're playing a Sonic fan game. Almost. All in all, BJ Blazkowicz is a fairly interesting character. I'm not sure how impressive it is, seeing as you're essentially restoring old gameplay systems to fit the Wolfenstein gameplay instead of creating new ones like Metroid Vanguard did, but it's a fun way to re-experience SRB2 from a different perspective, literally and figuratively. However, the mod could be so much more just tweaking things like enemy health, in order to make collecting more powerful weapons actually a good use of your time. As it is, the mod is novel but nothing groundbreaking, and it doesn't really have that one thing, that wow factor that others do, and so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Good, but not quite reaching greatness. I hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.